Welcome to our unit on mechanics. This unit is going to give your writing its final polish. So what are we going to do today? We'll go over just really a review of a few terms you learned in ILS 1. Then we'll go over the 5 rules of punctuation that cause Germans the most trouble. You have more in your reader. And finally, we'll get you started with the exercise that you're going to do in your reader. And when you're finished with that exercise, then you should compare your answers to those of the keys on OLOT. First, I will share my screen and start our PowerPoint. I wanted to get my little picture a little bit bigger so you could see me. Ooh, there we go. Okay, so what are mechanics? Does anyone have an idea? Mechanics are these little rules or technicalities related to written language. So when we speak, you don't necessarily see these things. So let's see what they are. First of all, I want you to know that we are going to look at the rules from the MLA handbook. It's the 7th edition because they did such a good job of explaining them, and they can be found in your reader. And the exercises we'll do are from the Little Brown handbook. It's a handbook on English grammar and mechanics. Okay. So terms. These terms should be familiar to you from ILS 1, but some of the terms that are used by the MLA handbook might be slightly different than the ones that were on hypergrammar. So coordinating conjunctions. What are they? They're a part of speech. Do you remember the acronym? The fanboys. Good. And they are small words that connect to items of equal weight. So they could connect to phrases, they could connect to clauses. All right. Then, what is the difference between a phrase and a clause? A clause has a subject and a verb. And we have 2 different kinds of clauses. Important you know them for the punctuation exercises. Clause could be either an independent clause or a dependent clause. The independent clauses, they are independent. They can stand alone. I am sitting at my desk. That can stand alone. A dependent clause could not stand alone. Although I am very tired, I am going to record this. Although I am very tired, could not stand alone. That is a dependent clause. You may also know the terms main clause and subordinate clause. Now, what's tricky about German and the German and English difference is that in German, you put commas around every dependent or subordinate clause. And in English, we make the distinction between 2 types of dependent clauses. Does anyone know the distinction that we make? Right. We make the distinction between non-restrictive dependent clauses and restrictive dependent clauses. So non-restrictive means it's non-essential, it's additional information. Barack Obama, comma, who was the 44th president, comma, is on vacation. Barack Obama is on vacation. We know what's happening. That's just additional information. Who was the 44th president? We put it in commas. Professor Zeiler says you could add the phrase, by the way. Barack Obama, comma, who, by the way, was the 44th president, comma, is on vacation. However, a restrictive dependent clause would be necessary, would be essential for the meaning, no commas. The man who was the 44th president is on vacation. No commas. We need that to restrict which man we're talking about. Otherwise, it would read, the man is on vacation. Huh? What man? All right, two other little terms related to mechanics. A hyphen, what's that word in German? Bindestrich, very imagistic. I love the German words for marks of punctuation. And then we have the apostrophe, which is spelled the same, but we pronounce it differently. Okay, then rule number one. What I'm going to do by introducing you to these 5 rules, I will give you a sentence that is incorrect, and you decide what needs to change. And then you're going to decide what the rule is. So see how well you do. When students learn their comma rules, their writing looks polished. So do you know where to put a comma? I think so. What is the rule? So here, I'll give it to you. When students learn their comma rules, comma, their writing looks polished. Why is there a comma after rules? If you can, write it down on your sheet of paper, see if you're correct. Informal writing, put a comma after introductory phrases or introductory dependent clauses. So when students learn their comma rules, comma, that's a dependent clause in the beginning, and then comes the main clause. You have probably seen this when you read, however, comma, on the one hand, comma. You should know that you can put a comma after every introductory phrase or dependent clause. The only ones we don't do that for are short time adverbials. Tomorrow, I'll go to the university, no comma after tomorrow. Okay. I just want you to know which rule that is that's in your reader. So if you want to highlight it, you can do that. 322F. I'm telling you really the 5 most important rules. Okay, rule number 2. Here's a sentence. Your writing is strong, and you should be proud of how well you can write. Where are you going to put a comma? Right before the coordinating conjunction. Why? We don't always put a comma before a coordinating conjunction. For example, my favorite colors are pink and purple. We would have no comma before the coordinating conjunction. What is the rule? Informal writing. So again, this is related to formality. Put a comma before coordinating conjunctions connecting to independent clauses. What you should know is that these first 2 rules are related to academic writing when you have long sentences. If you read a newspaper, you might not see the commas here. They're saving space. If you want to highlight it in your reader, 322A. Rule 3, next sentence. This is a hard and fast rule related to English, right? Students should reread The Swimmer, and Enright could even read it to them. What's the problem here? Did you recognize? It's a comma splice. So you should not use a comma to join 2 main clauses or 2 independent clauses when you write in English. The correction would be students should reread The Swimmer, semicolon, and Enright could even read it to them. Remember that rule. In English, use a semicolon to connect 2 independent clauses. I am sitting in my home, semicolon, you are sitting in yours, perhaps. MLA rule 3.2.3A, highlight it. Okay, rule number 4. So the next 2 rules are partner rules. So when you learn one, then basically you'll have learned both of them. Students who have perfect attendance usually do well on the exam. What needs to be corrected here? Did you get it? No commas. Students who have perfect attendance usually do well on the exam. Not all students. It's restricting the students. It's essential for the meaning of the sentence. So here you go. Rule number 4, in English, do not use commas to set off restrictive phrases or subordinate clauses. All right. The man who was the 44th president is on vacation. No commas. MLA Handbook Rule 3.2.2.e. All right, we are to the 5th and final punctuation rule. Here we go. This is actually from the exercises that you're going to do. I believe those exercises are on page 57 for you. So you can already look at that sentence. Italians insist that Marco Polo, the 13th century explorer, did not import pasta from China. What do we need to do to correct that? Add the commas around the non-restrictive element or phrase. It's just additional information. Italians insist that Marco Polo, the 13th century explorer, by the way, did not import pasta from China. Remember that rule in English, set off restrictive phrases or subordinate clauses. I always call it subordinate clauses. Your book calls it dependent clauses with commas. 3.2.2.e. All right, so now you should definitely open your reader. I'm going to get you started with the first one. So you see you have 25 sentences. You should use, I don't know, a pencil or black pen, and you're going to try to correct each of the sentences, and then you're going to write out the rule. It's important that you know the rule, so it's not just how it feels. Okay, so then with another colored pen, purple pen, you can mark what you didn't get right the first time. We'll do the first one together. Okay, is this correct or not? So some of the sentences might be correct, some need to be corrected. Our language has adopted the words garage and fanfare from the French. What do you think? Are you going to keep the commas? Are you going to take them out? The correction is there are no commas. Why are there no commas? You do not set off restrictive phrases with commas. So you know that, yeah, it's not all words. Our language has adopted the words from the French. Huh? What words? So there it is restrictive, and you do not want to set it out. If you put commas around, it means you can just take out those words, but it wouldn't make sense. That is MLA Handbook Rule 3.2.2.e. So you could write the number for the rule, or you could just try to write in your own words what the rule is. Okay. All right. Enjoy having polished writing and knowing the rules behind the polish. I'll see you next week. Have a good week.